All right, today we're going to dive into the hidden metal machinery that shapes what we believe. We're going to look at what really happens inside our heads when a harsh reality just collides with our deepest convictions. So, let's get right into it. You ever wonder about this? Why is it that after something terrible happens, you almost always hear someone say, everything happens for a reason? It's a really fascinating puzzle about the human mind, and today we're going to piece it all together. What about this one? It's a blessing in disguise. Now, these aren't just, empty cliches. They're actually verbal clues, little breadcrumbs pointing to this powerful and totally automatic psychological process that kicks in the very moment our fundamental view of the world is threatened.
So that feeling, that really intense internal conflict when a belief you cherish just smacks right up against a painful fact, well, it's not just some vague discomfort. It actually has a specific and very important name in psychology.
It's called cognitive dissonance. The best way to think about it is like a kind of psychological friction or even pain. It's that jarring feeling you get when what you believe to be true and what you see happening in the world are in direct opposition. And our brains, well, they're hardwired to get rid of this pain as quickly as possible.
So look at it this way. On one side, you've got this core belief, right? Like the world is a just place. But then on the other side, you've got this conflicting reality. A horrible, totally unjust thing happens. That collision, bam! That creates cognitive dissonance, and our mind immediately declares a state of emergency.
And just like our bodies have an immune system, our minds have their own automatic defense system to protect us from the pain of that dissonance. It's like our mind's own little emergency response team, designed to restore our sense of order and meaning.
So, the brain has three main tools it uses to cope with this: selective scrutiny, reframing, and identity defense. And it's really important to remember, these aren't flaws in our thinking. They're actually incredibly powerful and efficient protective mechanisms. Let's break them down.
Okay, first up is selective scrutiny. This is basically where we act like a biased detective, searching only for the clues that prove our case. So if we believe God is only a healer, we'll mentally filter out or just plain ignore any evidence from life, from scripture, whatever that suggests otherwise. It's a way to shrink reality down to a size that comfortably fits our belief.
Next up, we have reframing. Now, this is where we don't change the facts, but we change the meaning of the facts. We take a painful, destructive event and we wrap it in a totally new story. By calling something a blessing in disguise, we're transforming its meaning from something that shatters our worldview into something that actually supports it.
And finally, we have the most powerful strategy of all, identity defense. This is the one that kicks in when new information threatens our very sense of self. And the response here isn't a debate. It's a declaration. My God wouldn't do that. Why? Because to accept the new information would mean changing who you are.
So why are these responses so automatic, so instantaneous? Well, it's because they're rooted in our brain's fundamental operating system, which is best understood as a two-system model. This here lays out our two modes of thought, an idea made famous by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman. System 1 is our fast, automatic, gut reaction thinking. And System 2? That's our slow, analytical, and deliberate self. And those emergency coping strategies we just talked about? Yep, they are pure System 1.
And, while these terms might feel super modern, the idea itself is actually over a century old. I mean, from William James talking about associative thought to Freud's id and ego, all the way to Stanovich and West, who actually coined the terms System 1 and System 2, we've understood for a long, long time that the human mind has this dual process nature.
But what's truly amazing is that this very modern psychological framework, it's illustrated with perfect clarity in some of our most ancient stories. These narratives are just filled with case studies of our two systems in action.
Just look at these. They're all classic examples of System 1 thinking running the show. You have Esau, driven by immediate hunger, trading his entire future for a bowl of soup. David acts on a fleeting impulse and creates a lifetime of regret. Peter, instinctively, without thinking, draws his sword in a moment of panic. These are all stories about the consequences of fast, impulsive, emotional thinking.
But now, contrast that with these examples of System 2. Before he answers a king, Nehemiah pauses to pray and think. The Bereans, they don't just accept what they're told. They pause to trust but verify. And Jesus himself teaches people to count the cost before starting something new. All of these are stories about the wisdom that comes from slowing down.
And that's exactly why our cultures are filled with these little sayings. They're not just cliches. You can think of them as cognitive guardrails. They're simple, memorable little mental tricks designed to do one thing: get you to hit the brakes on your impulsive System 1 and engage your slow, deliberate System 2.
Which brings us to the final and I think the most important question. Why? Why is our mind built this way? Why do we have these powerful automatic systems that seem designed to shield us from reality?
Well, here's the big insight that ties this whole thing together. We simplify, we reframe, and sometimes we even ignore reality, all to protect something we value even more, a sense of meaning, of purpose, and order in the universe.
So it all comes down to this final calculation. When a harsh truth goes head-to-head with our core needs for identity and psychological safety, the mind almost always prioritizes protecting our identity and our safety. It will literally reshape its interpretation of reality rather than abandon the beliefs that make us feel secure and give our lives meaning.
So I'll leave you with this one final thought. As you've been listening and thinking about all of this, which system has been in charge? Has it been your fast, intuitive System 1 or your slow, analytical System 2? Because understanding that difference, well, that's the first step to thinking more clearly about, well, everything.